Hey folks, Sosan here. I used to work as a help desk assistant 5 years ago, and today I work as a site reliability engineer for IBM Cloud in the IBM Cloud production team. And I kind of wanted to talk about how I made the transition from help desk to SRE. So, firstly, I kind of want to talk about my college, right? So, when I was in college, I was bad at coding. Most of our coding stuff was in Java, and Java just did not click with me. And then we had web development too, so I was decent there. It was mostly JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and PHP, but that didn't really excite me back then. But then on our final year, we had this module called Advanced Network Theory, so which introduced us to networking world, I'd say, right? So a little bit about TCP, UDP, and gave a slight introduction to CCNA as well. So as soon as I was done with college, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go and get the CCNA certification done. So when I was studying for my CCNA, I absolutely enjoyed it. It was the first time I got introduced to, routers and switches and how multiple devices connect together, how things work behind the scenes to make two devices communicate, and then doing a lot of labs in packet tracer, GNS3, and so on. So that really excited me. I think being in the terminal, I absolutely enjoyed it. I enjoyed being in terminal more than in IDE. So that piqued my interest in networking, right? So after I got my CCNA certification, I started applying for jobs. And for my first job, I actually reached out to my college because it was September when I was applying for my jobs. And then usually in September, you have a big influx of new students coming in. And usually the IT team in college, they always need a hand, right? And I think I was the right candidate for that job because like I was in the college, I knew each and every single building. I had CCNA, I was familiar with the college Moodle software, so I was pretty sure I would help them, like I would be of some help to them. And funnily enough, like they weren't even advertising a job. I just reached out to them and said that, hey, I'm off for work if you guys have something to offer. And then they actually welcomed me for the job, right? So when I was on the job, a couple of tech stacks that I worked with was Active Directory and then the college Moodle software itself, and then pretty much everything was hosted in Windows servers. So the things that I did in my college job was unlocking accounts, resetting passwords, making sure the students are added in the right uh, college, groups and so on. So while I was in that job, I kind of knew that I wanted something different. Like, while it was nice, like I wasn't looking to settle in that job. So I started looking for other jobs, and then I found a job in this company called Echo. So the job was basically titled as Network Operations Engineer, but it was help desk, just help desk in an MSP. And then a couple of tech stacks that I worked with was PRTZ, so that was our network monitoring tool. So it's a tool that monitors all our backend infrastructure, like routers, switches, firewalls, servers. Things we'd monitor would be drop packets, maybe disk C, like server the disk users on C drive, and then if some services, critical services on some servers are running or not. So basically, PRTZ was a way to look into our infrastructure. And then I worked extensively with firewalls as well. It was mostly Fortinet firewalls. Most of the virtualization was done using VMware. So we had this private cloud setup where the company would actually bring in 80% of its revenue from backup as a service. So imagine you're a customer, you have 100 servers in your network, right? So, and then, we'd add one server in your network, all of your 100 servers will send the data to our backup server. That server would now compress the data, clean it, right? Any temp files and so on, remove them, and check it has no malwares and so on. And all of those was actually done using the backup vendor software. So once that was done, then that data was sent back to our infrastructure, so our network, let's say, and then it would be received by the first backup server, and that was Windows servers too. But then after that server received it, it would send it further back to our own backup server, and those servers were Linux servers. But we were not allowed to touch the Linux servers, being a NOC engineer. So for me, at that stage, a couple of things clicked, right? Like, if I wanted to grow in this company, backup was my option, like backup solutions and so on. So we had a couple of vendors that we worked with, namely Asigra, Veeam, and Zerto, Storagecraft too. So what I did was I started getting this vendor certifications so that I understand the product more, and any tickets that came on the backup stack, I was the first one to grab it. So the backup team, they kind of noticed this over time, and when they had an opening, right, like I applied and I was the right candidate for that role because I already had the fundamentals built into me, right? And then to talk about certifications, by now I had CCNA, the backup vendor certifications, and then I actually did another certification called NSC4, which is from Fortinet. So it's called like network security expert, no expert by any means, but it was just an introduction to how firewall works, how you create private VPN tunnels, and how to configure our firewalls and so on. And so after having these things, I got promoted in the same company as a systems engineer. So now my job was all the looking after all the escalations from level 1, and then on top of that, looking after our Windows servers, so routine patch of the servers, and ensuring that all the backups are running fine. If something is wrong, go and figure it out why it's wrong. Sometimes it could be that the backup software running, the backup service running in that particular server is stopped for X number of reasons. Sometimes it could be network issues, sometimes it could be firewall issues. So I learned how to debug those things and solve those kind of issues. And when I actually worked with firewall, I worked end to end with the firewalls. So all the way from placing an order in Fortinet to configuring rules and policies on the firewall, loading it up with an operating system, actually even taking the firewall to the physical data center, racking it up with the switches, and then powering it on, and on top of that, like any customer requirements that would come for the firewall, right? So those were the things that I kind of played around with in this job. And I knew that Linux was very important when I was on this job, because all that core servers that we had, which was around 10% of our servers, that was very strict for anybody else to use, was all Linux, right? So all of our core infrastructure was actually in Linux, even though our 90% of the servers was Windows, which was our customer facing servers, let's say, but then the core component was in Linux. So that kind of told me that, okay, if I need to work on something really important, it has to be Linux. So I started studying Linux, and the way I did it was, say, I started looking up the Linux exams and came across this RHCSA exam. So I didn't really go for the exam, but I followed the structure for that exam. Like, I kind of enjoyed that approach because it tells me what I need to study first and then move on. Because sometimes, you want to study something and then there's just too much content and you get lost really easily. But for me, having that definitive structure helped a lot. So having those skills and experience on this job for a couple of years now, I kind of wanted to move on to something different. So this is when I got my job as a SRE in Sheen, and that job completely changed me, right? Because I got exposed to many different things that I wasn't exposed to previously. And then I think the most important thing that helped me get this job was my Linux and firewall and server troubleshooting skills. So when I was in Sheen, a couple of tech stacks that I worked with was, as you can see here, it was Kubernetes, Nginx, Redis, Azure, Ansible, Terraform, all the stuff that comes becoming an SRE or a DevOps guy, right? So now, when I was in Sheen, right, like, what I understood was Kubernetes was very important for Sheen because the scale that Sheen was operating was absolutely huge compared to Echo. And if Kubernetes was not there, there was no way we would be able to manage all of those things based on what I saw, right? So, we were very Kubernetes native. Everything was Kubernetes related, and then like seeing all that insane number of servers being managed so easily and efficiently by Kubernetes just blew my mind. And then I knew that if I need to work in really big scale companies, then Kubernetes is the way to go. So I started going really deep into Kubernetes. So two approaches that I did, right? So approach number one was just understanding the internal Kubernetes clusters of Scene itself. Like, why do we build something in this way? Why do we use these solutions from Kubernetes, but why not use that? So like not all the solutions from Kubernetes were used in Sheen, but only some were used. So I started asking questions like, okay, why this, why that, and so on. And then to be honest with you, like, when you ask questions, say to 10 people, two might respond, but that's okay, right? It's better to ask than to not ask these questions at all. And then, so a couple of other things came from this role too, like Grafana, Prometheus, and this is when I got really deep into scripting. So this is when I brushed up on my Python and Bash. So when I was in Sheen, I got decent, I'd say. I wouldn't say like I became an expert, but I got decent into Kubernetes, Python and Bash. And then I had this other tech stack built on top of that. And, a few things happened. Then I thought I'd look for another role. So I came across this role in IBM, and this was in the production SRE team, and Kubernetes was a really core component in this job as well. So for me, that was the most exciting part. Like, I didn't want to leave Kubernetes on my next job, and had my interview. My interview was very Kubernetes heavy. It was one of the most interesting interviews that I've ever done, and absolutely enjoyed that interview, and I nailed it as well. So then I got offered the job, and now I work as a SRE for IBM Cloud team. So I work with a team that ensures that all the services that you can use in IBM Cloud is up and running, and it's smooth and efficient. So many things come to make that happen. Of course, the tech stacks are similar to what I did in Sheen. It's Kubernetes, public cloud, Linux, Grafana, Prometheus, Ansible, Git. So I think once you become an SRE, the tech stack kind of is similar to, it doesn't really matter which company you go to. The tech stack for 80 to 90% of the cases are quite similar. There might be that space of 10% where you might use a different tool instead of that, but end of the day, if a company is using the right SRE principles, then your tech stacks are quite similar because you want to achieve the same goals, right? So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. That's how I made my transition from Helpdesk to SRE. If you guys want me to get deeper into this topic, please let me know in the comments. I'm more than happy to talk in detail about about each job that I had, and probably the importance of certifications that played in my career too. And yeah, that's all. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you.